The moment I told Vanessa I'd lost everything, the look on her face burned itself into my memory forever. If you've never thought about testing someone's loyalty, you might think it's cruel. But by the end of my story, you'll understand exactly why I did it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments, if you were in my shoes, would you pull a stunt like this? My name is Ethan Carter, 36 years old, founder of a software company I built from scratch. 10 years ago, I was just another guy with a laptop and a dream. Today, I'm worth more than I ever imagined. Business has been good, very good. And that's the problem. When life is comfortable, people around you get comfortable too. And comfort hides motives, until the comfort is gone. I met Vanessa Reed 3 years ago at a charity gala in New York. She wasn't the kind of woman you noticed in a room. She was the kind of woman the whole room noticed. Stunning, poised, the type of confidence you could feel from across the floor. When we started talking, she made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. It didn't hurt that she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread. The first year together was pure bliss. Weekend getaways to Napa. Michelin-starred dinners in Paris. Private rooftops in Rome. I loved spoiling her, and she loved being spoiled. We seemed perfect. But slowly, small cracks appeared. Conversations about the future weren't about building a life together. They were about bigger apartments, designer furniture, luxury travel. She never asked about my dreams outside work, but she always knew the exact release date of the next limited edition handbag. I told myself, "You're overthinking this, Ethan." But the thought didn't go away. If anything, it grew. And then came the question that would keep me awake at night. Would Vanessa still love me if all of this was gone tomorrow? In business, I've learned you never trust without testing. We run stress tests on systems, simulate crashes, prepare for every what-if. But in my personal life, I'd been coasting without a single test. So, I decided to run one. I started small. I told Vanessa a deal I'd been counting on had fallen through. I canceled a dinner at a 5-star restaurant and suggested we cook at home instead. Her smile stayed, but her eyes flickered, just for a second. A flicker of disappointment. A week later, I took it further. I told her my company's main investor had pulled funding and I might need to make some serious adjustments. I swapped my luxury car for an old sedan I kept in storage. I stopped wearing my tailored suits and went back to the kind of clothes I wore before success found me. She tried to play it cool. "We'll be fine," she said. "I'm not with you for your money." But her tone was just a little too practiced. And she suddenly had client dinners 3 nights a week. I knew I needed the final push, the moment that would strip everything down to the truth. 2 weeks later, I invited her to dinner at our apartment. No candles, no fancy bottle of wine, just pasta and a cheap bottle of red. I waited until we were eating before I looked her in the eyes and said, "Vanessa, there's something you need to know. The company's gone. The money's gone. I'm broke." She froze, fork halfway to her mouth. And in that pause, in that breath, I saw something I could never unsee. When I told Vanessa I was broke, the silence that followed was louder than any argument we'd ever had. She didn't reach across the table. She didn't say, "We'll get through this together." She just stared at me like she was processing a foreign language. Finally, she set her fork down and asked, "What exactly do you mean, broke?" I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice calm. "The company's gone under. Our accounts are frozen. Everything I've built is gone." Her lips parted slightly, but instead of concern, her eyes darted toward my bookshelf, specifically, the shelf with the framed photos of our trips, Paris, Santorini, Aspen. Her gaze lingered there like she was counting what those memories had cost. I just wasn't expecting this," she finally said. "It's a lot to take in." She didn't ask about me, my stress, my plans, my health. Instead, she asked, "So, how are we going to pay for the apartment?" That was the first hairline crack. Over the next week, the changes were subtle, but I noticed every one of them. She stopped calling me during the day, just to check in. Our late-night talks became early nights alone, her side of the bed cold before midnight. The fridge filled up with takeout containers from places I hadn't been invited to. One evening, I suggested we go to the little Italian place down the street. Nothing fancy, but it was where we'd had one of our first dates. She hesitated before saying, "Actually, I already have plans with a client." I let it slide, but later that night, I saw a tagged photo of her on Instagram, smiling at a rooftop bar, cocktail in hand, surrounded by people I didn't know. The old me would have confronted her right there. But this was a test, and you don't end a test halfway. I started noticing the way she spoke about the future. She used to say we when making plans. Now it was all I might go to LA next month. I've been thinking of redecorating my place. Her place. Not ours. The turning point came one Thursday night. I was on the couch, laptop open, pretending to scroll job listings. Vanessa walked in, carrying a shopping bag from a high-end boutique. She froze when she saw me, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. "I thought we were being careful with money," I said lightly. "It's just a little treat for myself," she replied, setting the bag down. "Besides, you don't have to worry about it. Harper covered it." Harper. I'd seen that name pop up in her messages before. I'd told myself it was a client, maybe a friend. But now, the tone in her voice when she said his name made me think otherwise. That night, while she was in the shower, I sat at the kitchen counter and stared at my reflection in the darkened window. The truth was starting to take shape, and it wasn't pretty. But I wasn't ready to end it, not yet. Because if she really was who I feared she was, I needed undeniable proof. The kind of proof that would leave no room for you misunderstood, or it's not what it looks like. I was about to dig deeper into a side of Vanessa I'd never seen before. And once I did, there would be no going back. When trust starts to fade, it's not the big lies you notice first, it's the little inconsistencies. The way Vanessa's phone was always face down now. The sudden networking events that didn't exist before. The fact that she never smelled like my cologne anymore when she came home late. I told myself I wasn't going to become that guy, the one who checks her phone, follows her around, turns into a paranoid mess. But the truth? I was already halfway there. One Friday evening, Vanessa claimed she was meeting a client for dinner. She left wearing the kind of dress you don't wear to talk about marketing budgets. My gut told me this was the night I'd either prove my paranoia wrong, or confirm everything. I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed my keys and followed her car at a distance. She didn't head downtown to the business district like she said she would. Instead, she drove to a luxury hotel. From across the street, I watched her step out of her car, and into the arms of a man I'd never seen before. Tall, expensive suit, perfectly styled hair. He kissed her cheek like they'd done it 100 times. And then I heard it. He called her Van. That's what I used to call her. I didn't rush in, didn't make a scene. This was still part of the test, and I needed more than a single sighting. Over the next week, I tracked her patterns. She saw him 3 times, always at high-end spots, always dressed like she was going to a red carpet event. Sometimes she'd come home after midnight, smelling faintly of his cologne, her eyes distant when I spoke. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the ease. The comfort with which she switched between lives. With me, she was the supportive girlfriend of a man going through hard times. With him, she was the glamorous, carefree woman who had no idea what struggle meant. The name Harper finally made sense. I'd heard her say it before, but now I connected the dots. A quick online search revealed he wasn't just anyone. He was a wealthy investor, the kind of man who could give her the lifestyle she thought she was losing with me. That stung. Not because she'd found someone else, but because she'd done it so efficiently. Like swapping out a handbag. I could have ended it right there. Packed her things, told her I knew, walked away. But that would have been too easy for her. She'd just slip into his life without a backward glance. No, I wanted her to feel the same sting she'd given me. I wanted her to realize exactly what she'd thrown away. And when the moment came, it wouldn't just be a breakup. It would be a lesson she'd never forget. The plan for that moment was already forming in my head. And Harper? He had no idea he'd just been written into the script. When you've already seen the worst in someone, the hurt starts to fade, and something colder takes its place. For me, that cold was focus. I'd spent weeks feeling betrayed, questioning my worth. But now? I knew exactly who Vanessa was. It was time to plan her exit from my life, and her lesson. While she spent her evenings with Harper, I was working late for a very different reason. My bankruptcy story had been just that, a story. In reality, the investor who'd supposedly pulled funding had doubled down, and I'd secured 2 new partners in a major software project. The deal was set to close in under a month. The payout? Enough to not just restore my wealth, but to double it. I kept the act going. I still drove the old sedan. Still wore the plain shirts. Still let Vanessa see me job hunting on the couch. Every time she looked at me with that mix of pity and disinterest, it fueled the fire. 3 weeks later, my new company was ready to launch. The event was set for a Friday night at one of the most exclusive venues in the city, the kind of place where the champagne flows non-stop and the guest list reads like a Wall Street fantasy. And I made sure Vanessa and Harper would be there. Vanessa received her invite from a client contact. Harper's came from a potential investment partner. Neither invite had my name on it. They thought they were going to network, to mingle with power. They were, just not in the way they expected. The week before the event, I played my role to perfection. At dinner one night, Vanessa casually mentioned she had an important gala to attend. "Oh?" I asked, feigning interest. "Yeah, a client thing. I'll be meeting some big names." "Sounds exciting," I said, forcing a smile. "Wish I could tag along, but I'll be here." She gave me a quick, almost guilty glance, then looked away. On the day of the launch, I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting the cufflinks I hadn't worn in over a year. My tuxedo was perfectly tailored, my shoes polished to a mirror shine. It felt like putting on armor. I looked at my reflection and thought about the night ahead. About the moment I'd step onto that stage, the lights catching Vanessa's eyes from across the room. About Harper's smug smile faltering when he realized who was in charge. This wasn't just about money. This was about clarity. About giving someone the exact truth they'd been running from. I slipped on my watch. The one Vanessa had once said made me look like I owned the room. Tonight, I would. As I left for the venue, I sent a short text to my assistant. Make sure they're seated near the front. Because when the curtain rose and I walked onto that stage, I wanted them to have the best view in the house, of me, of what they'd lost, and of the door closing behind them forever. The venue shimmered under golden lights, crystal chandeliers casting a soft glow over the marble floors. Outside, a line of luxury cars stretched down the block. Guests in tailored suits and glittering gowns filtered in, the air thick with the hum of high-stakes networking. I arrived early, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to watch them walk in. From the mezzanine above the main hall, I could see everything: the way people gravitated toward the champagne tower, the subtle glances toward the private VIP section, the calculated smiles that never reached the eyes. At exactly 8:12 p.m., I spotted her. Vanessa. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, deep emerald silk that clung to her in a way designed to turn heads. On her arm, Harper looked every bit the polished investor, expensive suit, watch worth more than most cars, that effortless arrogance you can't fake. I stayed in the shadows as they made their way toward the front, greeting people with practiced charm. They didn't recognize anyone, but they acted as if they belonged. That was Vanessa's gift. She could adapt to any room, until the room adapted to her. The event began with the usual speeches from the MC, warm introductions, and the promise of a major announcement from the visionary behind tonight's launch. I could feel the anticipation ripple through the crowd. Harper leaned toward Vanessa, whispering something that made her smile. Then the MC's voice rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, the founder and CEO of Carter Dynamics, Mr. Ethan Carter." The applause hit first. Then the shift. Heads turned. Eyes widened. And in the front row, Vanessa froze. Harper's confident grin faltered into confusion. I walked onto the stage slowly, letting the silence wrap around them before I spoke. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," I began, my voice steady, calm. "Just a few months ago, many believed this project would never get off the ground. They said we didn't have the funding, the resources, or the team. But tonight, I stand here to tell you, they were wrong." Behind me, a massive screen lit up with the Carter Dynamics logo, followed by footage of our product launch, our investors, and the signed contracts that had secured us over $200 million in backing. The crowd erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed. And from my vantage point on stage, I could see Vanessa's fingers gripping the stem of her champagne glass so tightly I thought it might snap. I didn't look directly at her yet. That would come later. Instead, I continued. This company isn't just a business. It's proof that when you're tested, you can either break, or you can build something even stronger. I let that hang in the air for a beat too long, just enough for her to know exactly who I was talking to. As I stepped away from the microphone, the MC ushered me toward the mingling area. I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, until I stood right in front of them. "Ethan," Vanessa said, her voice low, as if we were in a library. You own this." I smiled. "Own it? I built it." Harper extended a hand, his expression forced. "Congratulations, man." I shook it briefly before turning to Vanessa. "Enjoy the party. It's on me." And then I walked away, leaving her standing there in a room full of people she thought were hers, but who had only shown up because of me. The speeches were over, the cameras were gone, but the party was still in full swing. The champagne kept flowing, the music pulsed, and business cards were changing hands faster than poker chips at a high roller table. I had already made my rounds, shaking hands with investors, thanking partners, posing for photos. But there was still one thing left to do. Vanessa. She was in the corner of the VIP lounge now, away from the crowd, clutching her glass of wine like it was a lifeline. Harper sat beside her, scrolling through his phone, looking restless. I approached slowly, not out of hesitation, but to give her time to see me coming. Her eyes found mine, and for the first time since I'd met her, I saw no performance. No charm. Just panic. "Ethan," she started, rising halfway from her seat. I didn't know. I thought that I was broke." I finished for her. "That you could quietly trade me in for a richer model?" She flinched, but I didn't raise my voice. Instead, I kept it calm, almost conversational, the way you'd speak to someone who just failed a very simple test. "Do you remember," I said, "when I told you I lost everything? You didn't ask if I was okay. You asked how we'd pay for the apartment. That told me everything I needed to know." Harper shifted uncomfortably. "Look, man, whatever this is. This," I cut him off, "isn't about you. You were just the symptom. She was the disease." The words landed like a slap. Vanessa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I reached into my jacket and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a single photograph, the first picture we'd ever taken together, back at that charity gala. I handed it to her. "Keep it," I said. "Not as a memory of me, but as a reminder of the night you met the man you threw away. Maybe next time you'll choose differently." Then I turned to Harper, my expression flat. "She's all yours. But you should know, she's very good at replacing people." I walked away without looking back. The music swallowed the silence behind me, but I didn't need to see their faces to know I'd left them with something heavier than humiliation: clarity. That night, I stepped outside into the cool air, the city lights stretching out in every direction. My phone buzzed with congratulations from people who mattered, and none from her. For the first time in months, I felt free. Because in the end, the test had done its job. I didn't just learn who Vanessa really was, I reminded myself who I was. And that was worth far more than money. If you were me, would you have given her that photo, or walked out without a word? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.